To date, Michael Bajent has accompanied Robert Eisenman and his team of archaeologists and volunteers on two exploratory expeditions in January 1989 and in January 1990. In the first of them, they concentrated on the excavation of a cave roughly a mile south of Qumran, some 500 feet up the cliff. The cave opened into a series of chambers extending at least 80 feet back into the rock. Part of the interior had a smooth floor made of palm fronds and packed mud. No scrolls came to light, but a number of Iron Age remains were found. A juglet and an oil lamp, and uniquely an arrow shaft and arrowhead in perfect preservation after 3,000 years. The expedition proved for the first time that some at least of the caves around Qumran had been inhabited, not just used as temporary refugees during brief periods of danger, but occupied on a more permanent basis. The second expedition endeavored to explore as much as possible of the Dead Sea coast south of Qumran and the adjacent cliff face. The purpose of this undertaking was to compile an inventory of all hitherto unexplored caves that might warrant subsequent exhaustive excavation, dividing itself into small teams. The expedition searched some 30 miles off cliff, rising precipitously as high as 1,200 feet. Apart from caves, there were found the remains of artificial terraces and walls of constructions for water control and irrigation, all attesting to human inhabitation and cultivation. Altogether, 137 habitable caves were located and subjected to preliminary examination without excavation. Of these, 83 were deemed worthy of systematic excavation. They will become the focus of future archaeological activity. Of particular and revolutionary importance to any such activity will be a new system of high-tech ground radar known as Subsurface Interface Radar, SIR. We had been discussing with Eisenman the likelihood of there being other caves in the vicinity of Qumran and along the shore of the Dead Sea, as well as of caves, room cellars, passages, and or other subterranean structures under the ruins of Qumran itself. De Vaux, the only person to attempt any excavation of the actual site, never looked for anything of the sort, never really probed beneath the surface, yet it is virtually unknown but for a construction of the kind, attested to by the Qumran ruins not to have underground chambers, passages, dungeons, or escape tunnels. It is generally acknowledged that something of the sort must indeed exist, but some fairly major excavations would be necessary, involving much trial and error and probably damage to the site. The prospect, therefore, of finding anything under Qumran seemed a priori doomed in advance by the magnitude of what would have been entailed, but in the autumn of 1988 we chanced on a newspaper article